Outcome bias is our tendency to judge a decision not by the wisdom at the time the decision was made, but by the end result. It's like evaluating a strategy in a chess game solely by whether you won or lost, without any consideration of the thought process or risk involved at each stage. To judge the quality of a decision, we should evaluate how that decision was made using the information and resources available at the time the decision was made. One example is called gambler's fallacy. Imagine yourself in Las Vegas and you've just won a hefty sum at the poker table. Euphoria sets in, and you are tempted to think, I've cracked the code. I'm a genius at this. But is that victory a testament to your gambling skills? Or is it simply luck's favor smiling at you momentarily? Just because you won this round does not mean that gambling your money was a wise decision. Your success masks the inherent risk and can lead to misplaced confidence. Here is another example. You drove home intoxicated but arrived safely. It may seem, in hindsight, that the choice was not so bad after all, but the decision to drive drunk is inherently flawed and dangerous regardless of the outcome. The safe arrival home should not validate the recklessness of the choice. In the throes of a potential epidemic, public health officials have to make tough decisions. If they act slowly and an outbreak occurs, they are blamed for not doing enough. If they act aggressively and successfully stop the disease spread, they may be accused of overreacting. It's a lose-lose situation where the outcome, rather than the process and information at hand, becomes the focus of judgment. A team leader decides to take a bold, unconventional path. If it leads to success, she is hailed as a visionary maverick. If it leads to failure, she is branded a fool or reckless. The exact same behavior is either praised or condemned solely based on the results. The risk and the calculation that went into the decision are overshadowed by the triumph or failure. Outcome bias can make us overly cautious or reckless. If we face negative outcomes from taking risk, we may become overly conservative. On the other hand, positive outcomes from risky decisions may lead us to underestimate future risk. In our results-driven world, outcome bias is a seductive trap. It lures us into simplistic judgments. It can turn the tables on rational judgment and reward reckless gambles while penalizing cautious wisdom. Imagine a general who takes an enormous risk on the battlefield, or an entrepreneur who gambles everything on one single idea. If they win, they are hailed as visionaries. Their reckless choices are suddenly seen as the product of genius rather than luck. The cautionary voices that warn against such risks are dismissed as timid, weak, or lacking vision. A few fortunate outcomes can paint a picture of boldness, leaving no room for questioning the inherent risk involved. People who make decisions on behalf of others, such as CEOs, politicians, diplomats, or doctors, are often trapped in a no-win situation. When outcomes are favorable, they receive modest praise. But when things go wrong, the backlash can be brutal. People may look back and accuse those decision-makers of failing to see the signs, ignoring that those signs were hidden or unclear at the time. The invisible ink of hindsight becomes glaring apparent only after the fact, leaving the decision-makers to shoulder undeserved blame. In organizations, the outcome bias creates a culture where results are everything, and the process is neglected. This can lead to short-sighted approach where long-term planning and ethical considerations are overshadowed by immediate gains or losses. It creates an environment where reckless risk-taking is rewarded and careful planning is dismissed. In organizations, the outcome bias plays a particularly challenging role, especially when it comes to performance evaluation. Here is an example of superintendents in school districts. Let's look at how outcome bias can mislead and distort our understanding of success and failure. Superintendents are among the most visible and highly paid public officials in the education system. A school district superintendent's salary sometimes exceeds that of the President of the United States. Society holds them responsible for the performance of their school districts, often courting and rewarding them as if they are the singular driving force behind educational success. However, the connection between a superintendent's paycheck and the school district performance is tenuous at best. A 2014 report showed that superintendents who impact student achievement in a statistically significant way are exceedingly rare. The report concluded that superintendents were largely indistinguishable from one another in terms of their effect on student achievement. Outcome bias leads us to believe that success or failure in an organization, such as a school district, can be attributed to the people at the top of organizational hierarchy. When students succeed, the superintendent is hailed as a visionary leader. When they fail, the superintendent is often blamed. But is this fair or accurate? Here is why this bias can lead us astray. Focusing solely on the superintendent's influence overlooks the entire system that influences student achievement. Teachers, other administrators, administrative staff, parents, community engagement, funding, and policies, all of those elements play an important role. Superintendents may have an influence, but they are not the sole contributors to the success or failure. When a superintendent claims credit for student achievement, are they unjustly taking credit for the hard work of teachers and teams? How much of their success is actually due to their leadership, and how much is merely a matter of chance, timing, or other external factors? Outcome bias can blind us to the rich complexity of organizational success and failure. It can lead us to misattribute credit, overlook systemic factors, repeat problematic decision-making process, and prevent growth and learning. Outcome bias also creates an illusion of control, an illusion that we have more control over events than we actually do. If a decision leads to success, we may attribute it solely to skill, ignoring the role of luck or unforeseen circumstances. Likewise, a failure might be seen as a flaw in judgment rather than a result of bad luck or unexpected developments. The case of the superintendents and the broader implications of outcome bias serve as stark reminders that things are not always as they seem. What happens to be a direct link between leadership and success is far more complex and can be influenced by factors beyond anyone's control. Outcome bias not only rewards risk, but it also makes us averse to it. If we've seen others fail because of a risky gamble, we may become overly cautious. On the other hand, observing reckless success may encourage us to take undue risks ourselves. This unbalanced view of risk makes us favor either bold recklessness or excessive caution. Neither extreme serves us well. Outcome bias paints the world in broad strokes, reducing the rich tapestry of decision-making to mere black and white. It casts a shadow where there should be understanding and shines a misleading spotlight on success and failure. It's important that we understand that a good decision can lead to a bad outcome and vice versa. Whether in business, public policy, or our personal lives, acknowledging and overcoming outcome bias can lead to compassionate, wise, and effective decisions. By focusing on outcomes rather than the processes, we may fail to learn from mistakes and grow. Outcome bias makes us prone to repeating the same decisions if they led to favorable outcomes in the past, even if those decisions were fundamentally flawed. It's like using a broken compass that happened to point north because of a nearby magnet. It worked once, so you trust it again. If we only focus on the outcomes, we miss the chance to learn from the process. When a trial does not lead to a mistake, it's easy to overlook what might have been a learning opportunity. It's like praising a student for a correct answer on a math problem without considering if their methods was fundamentally flawed. A decision that accidentally leads to success will be repeated. This establishes a pattern of poor decision-making that goes uncorrected. Outcome bias can lead us down a path of repeated mistakes and missed learning opportunities. Like a faulty map that occasionally gets it right, it can deceive us into believing that we're on the right track. We should understand not just where we end up, but how and why we get there. And in that understanding lies the true wisdom of choices, rich experience, and personal and professional growth. Start observing your decision-making process and those of others around you. See if you can spot instances of outcome bias. Please feel free to share your comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.